Hey, welcome to the Timecode Dead Air podcast. I am John Wood, and today we have one of my favorite directors, and one of that being because one of the coolest sets I've ever been on was his set for the Domestics. I'm talking about Mr. Mike P. Nelson. Mike, thank you so much for jumping on today, man. I was really excited whenever you got back to me because I was like, man, dude, I really want to bring him on. I had just seen Silent Night, Deadly Night, and was just like, man, you'd be great to talk to about a lot of things because you've had some really cool things since the Domestics, and the Domestics still to this day. I have people annoyed that I talk so much about it and like how it was one of the funnest sets I've ever been. Because it was like a true indie film, even though it necessarily wasn't. It had that vibe going on. It was amazing.
Yeah, we were playing with a lot of things on that one. It was a lot of discovery, a lot of learning. It was my first studio movie, so it was a learning experience all in itself. Although, again, like the approach to it was again very much like you said, it was very indie. That's what I had done before with short films, and it was kind of like how do you get all this done for very little, and we did. So yeah, it was a blast, and uh, yeah, that was a lot of good memories from that one, and obviously it holds a place in my in my heart for being numero uno.
And so that one came about because you were doing some short films based on it, right? Is that how that came on?
Yeah, yeah, I'd done a short film that I had actually the plan was to do like an episodic thing that I was just going to shoot these stories as I could afford them, and that would themselves these little short snippets would make up about a feature length film. But then I got told by several people who were watching the short, like, oh man, you should just turn it into a feature. Just make the feature. And a couple of people who said that were ones that ended up, or they said that they were very interested in doing it, and they ended up backing out.
Oh no shit.
So yeah, so go figure. It was like this weird thing where it was like kind of more indie prospects that were interested in doing it for a lot less money, and I was like, great. And then they ended up backing out, and then what happens? I get connected with Hollywood Gang, and then suddenly I'm at MGM and Orion and making this movie for way more than I was expecting to, with incredible crew, like actors, like building sets. Like I'm just like, this is wild, dude. So that was yeah, that was a ride for sure.
And how did you get hooked up with them? I mean, did they actually see it, or did somebody give it to them? Because I mean, that at that point in time, that was before I think the prevalence of web series, and so it wasn't as common. And so I remember trying to find it whenever I was on there because we were, I mean, a bunch of us were trying to find the first part, and we couldn't because I mean, this is before YouTube had its shit together, and you could actually just find anything you wanted to, and there was everything.
Yeah.
But did somebody send them to that, or did you actually just go, okay, well, these people are backing out, let me try to send it around, or how did that go?
Yeah, I sent it around. Like I
Yeah.
had I had this script, and it was just, yeah, here's the script. Here's like I had like a lookbook, and then I was like, and here's the short film that sort of like is sort of like the vibe, or one of the scenes that would take place in the film, because at the time it was a glimpse of it was going to be an episode, like a small episode. And yeah, so I'd sent that out and even cut a trailer, even just for the short, and that was sent to different studios and financiers and stuff like that, and yeah, that's how I got around. And I think now it used to be all password protected and stuff, like, and I don't even, dude, yeah, whatever. Like those days are over. I just like now you can just watch it. I think it's up on Vimeo. If you look up the
Awesome.
Domestics, the short is up on Vimeo now, or it has been for a while now. So
That's so cool because it's such a throwback to the old days of making a short and then trying to pitch it and getting it picked up, and that's really cool that that happened that way. And then I do know that one of the differences was that you wound up getting completely different actors. You went up with Tyler and Kate, and so with that, was that something that y'all went through casting, or did they suggest that, or did you have to attach them to try to get it done, or how did that come about?
yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of all of that. yeah, MGM was looking for a certain level of name. I mean, they're like with a lot of these things, so much of casting comes down to, well, it's like everything kind of has to sync up. It has to be, first of all, somebody that I feel like can do it, and then the studio has to sign off and say that they have value overseas and here domestically, and all this. Like, there's all these things that have to like line up. And for them, that was Kate and Tyler, and I had a great conversation with Kate and a great conversation with Tyler, and yeah, they were very different than the people that I had in my short. But yeah, they were definitely a huge piece of the puzzle to get the movie made, and I think they did a great job. And you know, it was for Kate. I'd never seen her do anything quite like that before. She was just ferocious in the movie, and so yeah, that was a fun experience, and kind of understanding how all that worked. A lot of lessons learned, because I had talked to so many, and at that point I was just coming into all this stuff, and so suddenly, like, I'm having Zoom calls with I think the first one I had, and this was before she exploded, but I think the first person I talked to was Rachel Brosnahan.
Mhm.
I talked to Sebastian Stan. Um, uh, God, yeah, I mean oh gosh, who else? I can't remember. It was I just kept going through all these people. Like, I can't believe I'm having conversations with all these actors, and because was me. I was a nobody director from Minnesota, and so it was very eye opening, and kind of being able to talk with all these actors that you've seen them in in all these things. You're like, wow, this is so cool.
And man, well, and that was one of those things of like just the cameos that came in. I mean, like Dasmalchian was in for, you know, a little 5-minute scene, making an incredible appearance, and then Lance Reddick was incredible in it, and Sonoya I had never heard of, and then was like, wait a minute, this is wow, and it just all came together, and it was really awesome to be part of, to just on set. I mean, it was just a completely different vibe, and that was one of the things that I've always given you a lot of credit for, was that you can usually tell how something's going to go whenever you meet the director. And I remember the first day it was just like, cool. So this isn't someone who like got a short film made and is coming in like, I'm the king and you. It was like, no, actually, you can have a conversation. We can talk about stuff. And also, it seemed like a big movie person, which is another huge thing, like a big fan. And so that leads into, I guess my biggest question was, how did you get into the industry? Like, what made you want to pursue filmmaking?
Jesus, it's been ever since, like, I can remember. I mean, I remember I remember when I was asked, like, when I was, God, I can't remember, I was like 5 or 6 or somewhere between first and fourth grade, you know, that when they started asking you the question of, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember I was like, I'm going to be an author or a jet fighter pilot. And, you know, so much of that was because of Top Gun.
Oh,
But then
awesome.
the author was because I actually really liked writing stories when I was younger. And of course, I loved movies. So yeah, I strangely did not say filmmaker at that young age, but I always continued to make stories. And of course, once I got my hands on my dad's giant video camera, that's when things started to kind of go in that direction, and started telling stories that way. And this just continued doing that for the, the majority of my life, actually. As far back as, believe, what was it, like, yeah, 8 or 9 years old, like, and I was constantly making stuff.
And so with domestics, that also because I have a kind of not a similar thing, but an experience that where I did an indie feature, and then while we were doing that, wound up having to deal with Gold Circle Pictures, which is, you know, top of the food chain kind of thing, and it was a complete like culture shock of having to go from making your own things to suddenly dealing with a studio and having people breathing down your necks and just everything you're doing. How was that for you? Because I mean, that had to go from 0 to 60 as well. You're making your own shorts with a plan of action. All of a sudden, you're getting, you know, Gianni's Evolved and Josh Stone's UPM and Maxime shooting it and Bill Clark is firsting it, and just all of a sudden, everyone's in there. That had to be a bit of a slightly overwhelming, I would assume.
It's weird because it was and it wasn't. It was
Right.
more like, I mean, just to kind of give you some context, like I had been shooting and been on set. Like set life was was not a new thing for me when
Right.
I did domestics. I mean, sure, it was the first like, well, I mean, it was the first Hollywood film. I mean, it was under the umbrella of MGM. Like I pitched the movie to them, they said yes, they gave me the money to do it. Like, so I think that was the newest aspect of it. In terms of like helming a crew, I guess sure, this was a this was a bigger crew than normal, but at the same time, it's kind of like I knew my place, and how to I knew how to lead, and I knew how, like, yeah, I just I felt at home, like, so nothing was out of place other than, yes, sure, it was nice to have like somebody like Bill and Josh and Shannon, um, overseeing and kind of helping me along the way. Like they were very kind to sort of help me through things that maybe I didn't understand, but at the same time, being on set was something that wasn't new. Like I'd been in situations, maybe sets that were half or third the size, but if you say that there was like what 100 or so people
Yeah.
uh, on our crew or whatever, I'd worked with sets of 40 and 50, so it was just stepping up, and but the focus was just how can I just continue to make the movie that I wanted to make. And there were days where that was a lot more challenging, especially when you were getting pressure from the studio to make at times a different type of movie. And yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there's a little bit of that creeps through, that I still see it on screen at times. And as a filmmaker, you look back and you remember the good times, and you also remember the bad times. And so I remember, when that movie does come up, or if I pull it up, I haven't watched it in several years now, but when I do see clips from it or somebody talks about it or whatever, I'm also reminded of sort of some of the battles that we had to fight to try to make the movie that we were trying to, or that I was trying to make. And I think for the most part, that movie's there, and there's a sprinkling of things that maybe I would have done differently. Just because of the pressure at times, and feeling like you needed to make certain people happy, but that was part of the learning experience. And I feel like now, going forward in the movies that I've been able to make now, I know how to navigate a lot of those situations. And honestly, and I have to give credit to the fact that because I was thrown into the deep end, and I learned it was a very kind of hectic, very at times explosive, there are a lot of personalities saying what they wanted, and lots of really insane phone calls, people yelling, screaming, like you're just kind of like, whoa, I can't believe I'm like in the middle of all this. Um, and so learning all of that, and then understanding how to handle that in
Mhm.
future projects, it was like, it was an incredible learning experience, if anything, to go through making that movie.
Yeah, and I can imagine, because I remember some of the days where it was, are we coming to work tomorrow or not? Because there'd be some kind of hiccup with something, and it was really one of those things where that's all I could think about was like, man, it's got to be tense. It's got to be something where you're just like sitting there, because I mean, you're trying to focus on making a movie and being the creative side and having that going on, but at the same time, it's your property and people are just on top of you trying to, well, no, you have to do it this way, and that's got to be a little, I don't want to say frustrating, but it's got to be hard to work whenever it's your property, like something that you fully created, and then people are trying to tell you how to make it, I guess, is the best way.
I mean, yeah, that was tough. I mean, there was a couple tough things, because first of all, being a first feature, and then knowing that, especially like we started shooting, and I think the first things that we were shooting were pieces of, it was like me redoing
Mm.
the short. Like the stuff that I made in the short was one of the first things that we ended up going out to shoot. And that was such a struggle, because I knew how I made the short feel, and I loved how the feel and the griminess and um, of that short came across, but I was getting a lot of pressure to not make the film feel as grimy as that. And so I had to find a balance, and it was a struggle because not only that, but like things that we found that were magic on the short weren't necessarily translating the same way for the feature. And so that first week, that first week was really tough because nothing was turning out the way that I was hoping it would.
Yeah.
But as soon as I let that go and was like, you know what, this isn't the short, this isn't the domestics that I was making, that I made 2 years ago, that I made 2 years prior to 2 or 3 years prior to shooting this. I was like, this is something new. Accept it, embrace it, and just do what you do, man. Like, you're good at this. Like, you can do this. And that's what I did. And as soon as I did that, it was really interesting to see how the first week, which was a bunch of people sort of like looking over at a first time director saying, does this guy know what he's doing? Suddenly turned into second week, everybody saying, whatever you need, whatever you need. Because I'd let it go. I let it go. And I just became somebody who was like, you connected with your crew, you listened, and you just actively were trying to make the best movie you could, and everybody saw that, and everybody saw some like the difficulties that were surrounding it, as you did, and everybody just stepped up, man, and it was really cool to see that. Like, I felt like I really had a team behind me that really supported me, and of course I felt the same. Like, if dude, these people are supporting me, like, I'm gonna lead. I want to lead, man, with freaking compassion and love, and we're gonna have fun doing this. And then the rest of the shoot was so much fun. I mean, I'll never forget one of the first conversations with Bill Clark, actually, when we were going through some hard stuff the first week of the movie, because everything at one point stopped. And I'm sure you remember when we were on set and everything stopped, and there's this, and for just to give you a little insight, at that point there was uh, stuff from the studio saying that they wanted stuff in the script changed, and the actors didn't want to do it, and I also did not want to do it because it changed the script, and the actor was like, yeah, we signed up for one script and now you're asking us to do something else. And so I was between a rock and a hard place. It was really challenging because I didn't know what to do. First time director. Even I remember talking with Shannon Golding at the time, and she was like, gosh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I haven't been in this situation before where now I don't know what to do and everything has stopped. And then Bill came over and he was like, what's going on? And I filled him in, and he goes, okay, so you have a couple options here. You can either go and continue making the movie that you want to make and possibly get fired, meaning you won't come back tomorrow, or you do what everything that they say, and it's gonna, things are gonna be rocky here anyway then. And I remember saying, like, I want to make the movie that I want to make. And he goes, okay, I got your back. And from that point forward, not to say that he hadn't prior to that in pre-production, but from that point forward, he was such a freaking fighter to get that movie made and to get what I needed. Like, I remember him, like, we would miss stuff during the day, obviously, like any movie. He just like, shit, we don't have enough time for this. We don't have enough time for that. He goes, don't worry, I'm taking notes. And he had this, I swear to God, it was like a Bible full of things that, like, these little clips and little scenes and little inserts and stuff that we needed that we didn't have time to get. And throughout the entirety of the shoot, he would pull those up during random parts of the day in which we were in between things. So, Mike, we can go pick up that insert of picking up that gun if you want to go do that right now. I'm like, yes, we would go and get it. By the end of the shoot, we weren't missing anything. Even though we had continually, had to, days, you get to the end of the day, you got to stop. We didn't end up missing anything. And so much of that was through his support, through Shannon's support. Josh, like, fighting for us, even though Josh was like a stickler for the schedule. God bless them. Like, I mean, they were all very much like on board to make this and make this the best we could under the constraints. I mean, 25 days, not a lot of time. So yeah, again, what a freaking roller coaster. The drama, as hard as it was at the time, I look back now and I sort of relish in it. It's like this weird, like masochistic sort of like pride in a way, because you're just like, God, I went through that. That really sucked. But then you look at it and you're like, God, but so much. How much have I learned? Did I learn through that experience? You know, because like now when shit comes up like that on set, you're just kind of like, okay. And I strangely get very calm in those situations. And I've had these moments where I'm like, well, let's talk about this. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. Like, we just sit down, we take 15, 20 minutes, and we hash things out. I don't know. Like, I don't know any other way to do it. Like, because that's what I learned through the crazy that was the domestics at times, dealing with very explosive personalities from the studio, to being able to just work with it and, you know, and find a way to that we can deflate all that tension, and work together. And yeah, that's, again, it was a blessing, to be honest with you. At the time I did not feel that way. At the time it was very hard. At the time I asked myself, do I really want to do this? And then I remember my wife saying, well, what else do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I was like, I kind of just want to keep doing this, even though. She goes, well, then just keep going. Like, I got you. And I've been doing it ever since.
And I'm so glad you talked about that, because on our side was Bill saying, hey, we need to get these figured out. And so we would have a task, like, how can we make this work? And that's one of the things that, like, when I say it was like the biggest independent film I've ever worked on, was because it would be like, hey, we need to be able to get these things in there, keep an eye out. And then you would go and be like, hey, I think we can get this here. And so then he would come and ask you, and we'd have it ready, because at one point on Terminator, we flipped a bus. That was the entire work for the day. It was like a 6 hour day to set it up, flipped it, went to lunch, broke. That was it. We flipped a water truck on the domestics and then went to the next 16 scenes or whatever.
It was insane, dude.
And completely insane. The explosion, the squibs, it would be like, you know, a big shot of 50 cal blowing through people and squibs. All right, moving on, going to the next thing. And one of us would be in control of one set, and we come and we get Tyler having somebody get shot, and then we go back and it would be Lance Nichols on shooting down at somebody else and have the camera. And it was nuts, but it was amazing, because it was all French hours. And so you'd get there and you knew, we're getting here at 6 a.m. We're going to be done by, you know, going home at 5. Let's just go, doing the walk-in lunches with the incredible catering, just walking around the whole day eating.
Dude, that catering was incredible, dude.
Incredible.
Like that was something I will say was eye-opening, was mind-blowing, was being on a set like that, and the food that was being served. I remember thanking those guys every day, because I was like, you guys are killing it. And I know that I know it was rough for them too. Like they were, I can't imagine what they went through. And I know the French hours thing was not their favorite. You know, it's never a thing that you ever really want to push, but again, we were put under a set of parameters that were almost nearly impossible for us, and we did it. And, you know, again, so much of that credit has to be given to you guys and catering and the people just keeping us going, so we could get everything we need. And I mean, honestly, with the exception of a handful of moments, I mean, that film was a 2-take, 3 max movie. We were just flying. People had to be on point. And like, if it was an effects shot, if it was squibs, you had to take.
Yeah.
You had to do it once, man. It had to work. Thank God Guy Clayton, his squibs were just freaking on point all the fucking time. Like, that guy he's a master at what he did. And I mean, he would give me grapefruit size, you know, Tarantino fuckers. You know what I mean? Just
I still remember, and I still use it, the scene where they're coming down, like the back end scene where everyone's getting squibbed up and Sonoya shooting from the roof and everybody doing, as one of the best action scenes as far as squib gore, because it's all practical and it's not CGI or whatever. It's amazing.
Yeah, yep.
And I
And it was,
remember, well, I remember one of my favorite things was there's like a little pipe bomb in a bucket full of body parts and blood, and it just went off. And
yep.
like that had to be kind of, I mean, whenever you were coming up with it, is that kind of what you were hoping for, or was that just something that you were just like, wait, we can do that? And how did you kind of get into the whole, like, did you or did you, I guess, did y'all go through that in creating it, or was that more of like a, hey, I got this, let me show you?
No, there was a lot of conversation about what we can and can't do. I mean, the little pop can like pipe bomb thing, that, I mean, that was a scripted thing that, you know, that Nina was supposed to be prepping, and then she had a bag full of them with using the shotgun shells. So all that was designed beautifully from you know, from production design and props and so forth. But in terms of like making that explosion, like it was kind of like, okay, so how are we going to do this? I just, you know, talking with Pyro and everything like that, it was just like, well, we have this big cone and we can fill it full of dust and debris to make it blow up. I'm like, could we throw a bunch of like body parts and like fill it full of blood too? Because I wanted a big red mist cloud, as though it really did take a bunch of people out. And it was sort of inspired by that scene in Private Ryan when they're taking
Yeah.
the 20 mil shells.
Mm.
Um, I
Oh,
think that's
and
what they
popping
were.
and throwing. Yeah.
Popping, he goes, pop it, heave it. And like there was a shot where Tom Hanks or Matt Damon like whips one of those things, and there's a bunch of guys running across frame, and then it just boom, it blows up right next to the stuntman running across screen, and the cloud that blows up is complete. It's just red, but it's not like a gooey red. It's like it's like the explosion cloud was like a mist, like it just completely shredded these guys. And I was like, I want that look. I remember them saying, well, yeah, we can do it. We just have to put a bunch of blood in this with all the debris. And when it blows out, it'll stain the cloud, basically. Oh, and dude, we were like, I remember the guys pulling body parts off the roofs of the houses
Yep.
in that neighborhood. I mean, I know it's hard to tell that there's a bunch of body parts flying everywhere. That was more of just my macabre, like, mindset. I didn't know if it was going to read or whatever, but that was, yeah.
Man, I got questions because I had to do I had to take a bunch of photos so that we could have everything lined up so that when we come back and do it, you know, the right bodies were laying down or whatever. So all the continuity photos I had on my phone, if I was ever showing people stuff, they would come across those and be like, what is this? Because it would just be, you know, people laying about, and it looked so, it was raining blood. It looked amazing. It
All
was
the time. Like the cars, it was like, it looked like it looked like there was a blood rainstorm, and
yeah.
yeah, all the cars were just like speckled. It's just coated. Those are good days that were challenging. I remember Bill always saying, like, we're shooting this sequence of action. Normally we would have like 2 weeks to do this, and we had like 4 days or something. Yeah, it was.
I mean, well, like I said, the Terminator thing was one day to flip a truck, and that was one of, I think, like 10 scenes that day. It was incredible.
Mhm.
And I've never worked on anything before or since like that. And I actually got told on quite a few sets, like, you cannot talk about domestics anymore. Because I'd be like, you know, on domestics, we did that. And I'd use that as an example. And they got so annoyed by me because I'd always use it. And they're like, yeah, we know. Y'all were able to do it. I was like, yes. Like, why can't we? Like, why are we doing this? And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that was also, I think Bill being, maybe I'm wrong, you can tell me this, Bill being Tarantino's guy would take a lot more chances to get away with things than a lot of first ADs do.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some of that, but I mean, we also had some incredible technicians that were, I remember, 100% willing to say no if something wasn't going to be safe. I mean, Guy was always there looking at making, you know, Guy and Brian were always making sure that things were up to 100%. Like, we weren't going to shoot anything that wasn't going to be safe. I mean, obviously there's inherent risk with flipping a truck. There's inherent risk with shooting blanks. There just is. But they always oversaw and made sure that everything was safe, that all the stunt people were taken care of, and that actors were going to be, safe. Guns were unloaded. Everything was dry and ready to go. But after we were done with the take. So I mean, there were plenty of times where, and then of course Nick Gillard, who was our stunt coordinator, he was very strict about what we could and couldn't do, but also knew that when, we could do something that was crazy, if again, crazy doesn't necessarily mean not safe. You know what I mean? Like look at all the stunt work and the things that have been done over decades that seem like, how in the hell did they get away with that? Well, it's always risky to pull off a stunt, but like it was overseen by professionals who really do know what they're doing, and it felt really good to have that protection on set. So yeah, Bill definitely championed getting things done, and making sure that like there was this ferociousness to things that I wanted. But we were also told no a lot of times, and I gotta respect those guys. I mean, this is what they do. We didn't want anybody hurt on set,
Yeah, and I remember there was one specific that not as this wasn't a stunt. This was just more of like bending the rules a little bit. Was there's the overshot of the bridge looking down, and Tyler and Kate are in an argument, and we missed. I think it was like Kate's side of it. We had to pick it up later on, so we went behind a levee.
Yes,
and that change of like jurisdiction was one where we did not have the permits for that. Yeah. And I just remember it was like, it's the whole like ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of thing. And that was,
remember that was a volatile moment, because there was, I think our locations wasn't very happy about it. Like it ended up being okay, and we ended up working it out in the end. But yeah, that was a hairy situation. But
like I said, though, loved it because it was like, yeah, let's just do it. Like what I get it, and
in the end, nobody really cared about it. It wasn't. It didn't end up being a big deal, and nobody's safety was involved. So it was more just, yeah, I know that was a crazy day. But again, it's one of those things where, we. It's like stealing a shot. It's like some of the things that you got to do to get some movies made. And I think I just have been doing a lot of research on Sean Baker too, and just the way that he'll just like go to a place with a camera and be like, just with the actors, be like, okay, we're just gonna shoot, we're just gonna go. And there's no documents saying you can or can't shoot here. It's just we're just gonna shoot it, and they get in. They do it. The actors do their thing, and they're out. Like,
oh yeah, there's one you might remember this. It was we needed to get a pickup, and we couldn't get Tyler and Kate back in time. I think they had to like cut out, so we used the stand-ins and dressed them up, and it was just you, Bill, Maxime. I think that was it because it was just the car pulling up into the farm.
Yep.
And like sound was griping out like, why didn't we get it? Was like, well, because we purposely did that because y'all would take up too much time and we don't have. So we just kind of like sneakily did something.
You sometimes you do. You have to do that. And again, like when you're trying to get the material that you need, and it's not, again, if everything is cool and it's and you can do it safely, and hey man, you got to get it done, otherwise you're gonna have holes, and you have to be you have to be open to being creative, and flexible with those kinds of things, and that was a great thing about that set, and something that mostly everybody understood.
And I'm not sure if you can talk about this honestly, because of all the stuff that was done, everything came out fine except for like one throwaway glass squib that kind of caused some issues on the back end, just because it was like because Kate's Sunty wasn't there, like they had already broken. I don't.
Oh yeah, with the car. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
with Nick having to
yeah.
jump in because we didn't have a stunt person there, and
A
yeah, that
throwaway
was
thing winds up like being an issue, and
yeah,
it's one of those things that like with filmmaking, you always cover every basis you have, and then the smallest thing winds up being yeah. So
yeah,
but all that being said, domestics, I was a little sad that it didn't get a full theatrical release because I was really looking forward to that.
yeah, yeah.
And I know it did that, but I mean, was that something that you kind of were disappointed in, or were you happy? Because I will say this also, one of the things that I've always loved is that to this day, whenever your physical media comes out, you go and buy it.
Oh yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah.
that's something that I've always loved. When I was talking before about like whenever you meet certain people, you can just be like, "Oh no, that's a movie person." Is that was one of the biggest things to me is like, dude, you're going and buying your own physical media. That's awesome.
Hmm.
So I mean, were you hoping for like a theatrical stuff, or was that more of like you were fine with the way it came out?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there were things that happened behind the scenes that I unfortunately don't know all the specifics of that led it to being just kind of a limited release. Like I believe it was released in like 20 cinemas
Mm.
for like a week or two or something like that. Like it played in LA, New York, Texas, um, a couple of like the bigger
Market,
cities. Um, and I think we even had we had a showing here in Minneapolis, so it was fine. I mean, yeah, it's hard when like the sort of concept behind it is, yeah, we want to do a big release, and then suddenly they decide against it. And again, I know that there were some things that were behind the scenes that went on that I mean, maybe for the best, that I didn't fully hear
yeah.
everything about, and on why it was that whole strategy was abandoned. Because at the end of the day, I remember when we screened the movie for MGM, like everybody was extremely happy. Like even though there were moments of contention at times, and we butted heads, at the end of the day, like we walked away and we were all really proud of it. And it was like I left shaking hands with all those guys, and just everybody was like, you know what, we're really proud of this, great job. Like this is, I know it was hard at times. Like everybody kind of everybody understood that it was a challenge to get through. And after we parted ways, it was all on good terms. But again, I don't know all the answers to why. There could have been a multiple different things, but yeah,
But the
it's what
positive
it.
is,
But ultimately, like you said, it came out on DVD. It came out streaming, and I getting a little bit of the back end off of it. The movie the movie didn't do poorly for it only being released in a few screens, and obviously having the physical media and streaming release. Like um it did fairly decent for just being sort of released out into the wild that way. And so that was something that I was very proud of. I was like, wow, I thought this was a complete like, not to say that the movie is a failure, but I was kind of like, oh, that's a freaking fail. It's not the big theatrical thing.
right?
I remember because you go into these things, and sometimes you have these delusions of grandeur, like, oh my god, it's my first big theatrical movie, and then everything's gonna be smooth sailing from here on. Nah, that's like that's 1%, that's 2% of people who come out doing something that really breaks the mold, and it's at the right place at the right time. And that was not this. And but definitely seeing the fruits of our labor, and then the movie finding its sort of cult fandom later on was definitely something where it's like, okay, this is really cool.
I was a little, well, not a little disappointed. I would say it sucks to not get deeper into that world. Like it's one of those ones where I was talking to somebody the other about Alita Battle Angel, how it ends, and you're just like, wait, they need more. There was more cool stuff with the domestics that could have been explored, and like hopefully at some point in time it does go back. Because I mean, I remember just on set we're talking like, man, this is really cool. We could like this could happen, this could happen. So hopefully at some point in time that can get revisited. But what it did do is that I I was really surprised when one day on your Instagram, I saw that Wrong Turn was coming out and that you
Right.
had done it. And I had heard nothing about that. Like, I didn't see any kind of like, maybe I'm just, one of these old cats who's not paying attention to stuff because he's doing too many other side things. But I was thrilled when I was like, oh, fucking Mike's got a new movie come out, and I was stoked about it. And then went and checked it out, and I was quite pleasantly surprised because by the end of the Wrong Turn series, it was, the straight to video kind of cheap ones that they're just putting out. And this was much deeper, much more to it. Like, I really liked the way you took that. How did Wrong Turn come about?
So yeah, after Domestics, it was, I pitched for a bunch of other things and wasn't getting anything. And some dark days, figuring out where the next paycheck was going to come. Do I need to find myself another job so I can actually like still do this? Should I even still do, there's all the things that go through your mind. And I remember getting this script from my man. I rep this guy, Alan. He wrote the first Wrong Turn. He just wrote this reboot that they're doing over at Constantine. Tell me if you like it. And I was like, oh boy. Wrong Turn. I was like, this is what I'm going to be doing now. All right, I'll take a look. And of course, the script was great. And I was like, oh gosh, this is actually really interesting. It's very different. Was not expecting this. And I had pitched 2 different movies at Constantine. One was this horror slasher thing that I'm actually getting made now,
Awesome.
finally. And this other thing was this shark movie in which all these athletes from around the world get kidnapped and they get put in a pool, like an atoll, and
Awesome.
they have to survive a huge shark.
That's
By this
awesome.
like psychopathic billionaire or whatever. We pitched that movie everywhere. Nobody bought it, but like Constantine was really, they weren't into the movie, but they were into me. Like Robert Kulzer was kind of like intrigued by the way that I pitched this shark movie. And so then when they reached out to Robert and they said, yeah, Mike Nelson is interested. And he said, Mike Nelson, like the guy who pitched me that weird shark movie. And they're like, yes. And he goes, okay, I want to hear his take. And so I pitched it to him, and he really liked what he heard. And then I got on a phone call with him and took him through more of my ideas and stuff like that. And he was like, we want you. So then we developed it over the course of would have been like a year. And with a movie, you never know if it's actually going to get made. And at times it felt like it was, and then it wasn't, and then it was, until then finally we got James Harris on the project, who had done 47 Meters Down, and he really responded to the script, and he took it off, and he just like, boom, here's how we can do it. We can make it for this much. We can shoot it here. Great incentives. Like, he had the plan, and then we were off. Like we were gonna shoot this thing in southern Ohio, and which was the only Wrong Turn movie shot in America, like on the actual foothills of the Appalachians. Like, all the other ones were either Canada or overseas. That was really important to me. I was like, we got to do this in Appalachian country. Like, let's actually do this. And sure enough, like Ohio, southeastern Ohio is right on the foothills coming off of West Virginia. And so, yeah, then we did it. And, again, everybody from the executives to the writer, Alan, to myself, like, we all had a very similar vision for what this movie was going to be. And we knew that it was probably going to make some people mad, which it did. Because it wasn't, just blood, guts, and boobs, and we were gonna switch it up a little bit, and we all knew that. Like, so nobody was like, let's switch it to this. Like, we stayed the course, and we all made the movie together, and we were all really proud of it at the end of the day. And yeah, like, it really it came together. And whereas the release was hard because COVID hit.
Yeah.
And COVID hit like when we had just locked the edit, and then like a week later COVID hit and completely derailed our plans for like finishing the movie, like all the mixing and all that stuff, and then the release, because that was a movie that was actually planned to be a wider theatrical release. And because of COVID and because of the theaters shut down, they decided to do a Fathom event instead, which was only release it for like a weekend and see how it does. And it did so well, and it sold out, that they added another day and then another day and then another weekend. And eventually, because there were so few movies being made and released, theaters were asking for the print. And so the movie actually screened from February into April all over the country. And whereas it maybe wasn't a huge theatrical spill, like maybe a few hundred screens as opposed to, 1,000 or 1,500, it did really well. And of course, Constantine was elated. Lionsgate was ecstatic because, they had picked up this movie that now what are we going to do? Like, now that COVID happened, and it was a thing, but we did it, we made it, and it reached a lot of people. And I think it's so funny because more and more, whereas at the time I got a lot of hate mail for it, and even death threats at the time, now it's found audiences more and more, and I think a lot of people who didn't see it when it first came out,
Mm.
who have been watching it more recently, like within the last couple of years, and taking and just like enjoying it, you know what I mean? Not expecting that that's what it is. When you hear Wrong Turn, some people are like, they're blown away or surprised in a good way.
Hmm.
And some people are like, this is not what I signed up for. You completely like ruined the series and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can't make everybody happy, dude. Like, but for me as a filmmaker, I'm going to go in, I got to tell a story that like I care about. And at this point, sort of my MO is, if I'm going to deal with an IP, it's not just going to be a rehash. Like, I'm not going to do that. It needs to mean something to me, and I need to have my point of view on it. And I'm going to give you something that you're not going to expect.
And I think that's a good way of putting it, because I saw it completely different, thought it was great, because it wasn't again, like by part 6 or whatever it was just schlock. And so it was a complete change of pace. And I think that's also, I felt the same way of Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is the latest thing that you've done, where I had just screened Silent Night, Deadly Night locally, and we had Linnea do a Q&A afterwards, and watched the new one. And I'm like, this is cool because it's different. It's not a direct remake. And you had a little bit of a different take. Well, I wouldn't say a different take. You just had the kind of the voices going on, like he was being led to that. And I know that one got a lot of, at least on my timelines, got a lot of play because of the whole, like, the Nazi scene, basically, where people were like, whoa, this is, and that one seems like it was that kind of something that you had always wanted to do, or is that another thing similar to with Wrong Turn, where they came to you with it and tried to like attach you to it?
It was similar to Wrong Turn. Like, I mean, I had worked with Brad Miska on VHS 85, and so when he was at Cineverse at the time, Cineverse had the IP, and they were working with 2 of the original producers, Scott and Dennis. And Brad was like, hey man, I got Silent Night, Deadly Night. I'm not sure your feelings on that IP, but we're looking for directors and a take. You want to throw your hat in? And I was like, sure. Like, at this point, like, that's one thing that I've learned is, like, when something comes to you, and I always try to look at these things as a door opening. You know what I mean? Maybe even sometimes it could even be a small window. And I like taking advantage of those opportunities, whether I get them or not. And I haven't. Sometimes you don't, But with Wrong Turn, with Silent Night, it was these ideas that, with Silent Night, they were kind of like an open book. They were like, we have a script, but you don't have to do this. And I read their script, and it was more just like a rehash. And I was like, I'm not interested in doing that, but I am interested in doing this.
Right.
And then I pitched them basically what the new movie is, and they were very intrigued by that. And they thought about it for about a week, and they were like, yeah, we actually think this is the right direction to go, because It's fresh, but it still feels like Silent Night. And then we were off and running. And again, did not grow up watching that movie. you know, it was a movie I saw a lot later in life. Never thought I would do that, but again, I saw it more as I'd always wanted to do a holiday horror film, and this was the perfect opportunity. Like somebody was like, "Hey, man, write us an idea for a holiday horror film, and it's going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night." I was like, "Well, great." And so I did. I took some of the small aspects of Silent Night that I really liked, so it could still feel like a Silent Night movie. But then I did what I love to do, which is flipping stuff on its head. It's like with the, you know, with my segment in VHS 85, it's like, how do I flip the slasher genre on its head? You know what I mean? And you, instead of a slasher, a guy with a knife or an axe or a chainsaw, it's literally a guy with a gun, like the thing that we're all afraid of. No matter where we go in the world now, somebody can walk into a grocery store and just start taking people out. That's scary. You know what I mean? Like there's a different sense of fear nowadays, and so utilizing that, putting it and wrapping it up in sort of the slasher paper that, you know, is maybe comforting to a lot of us, but then we're kind of releasing a lot more uncomfortable aspect to it. That's again, that's what I like to do, and that's what I hope to continue doing with my work and exploring things like that. So Silent Night was no different. It was by midway through the movie, things are gonna get a little crazy.
And but it's still, like you said, has that connection to it, because there's a lot of the scene, like the bow and arrow comes out. I'm like, yeah, okay, so obviously
you get
they're
nods,
still looking,
you know?
yeah. But I just, the whole beginning scene, not the beginning, but I guess the once the car crash happens, and it's just like, okay, well, this is cool, because you can tell the route you're going, and it actually makes a lot of sense, because it's not just the, oh, you know, this guy saw Santa killing his mother, and it's actually deeper than that. Yep. Really cool. Like you said, kind of turning it on its head, where it's not just, oh, this person had a traumatic childhood and he's going to go kill some people. It's a lot deeper, and it's a lot more interesting. I mean, because I don't know, it's just, you can definitely tell it's one of yours, if that makes sense, because Wrong Turn's kind of the same thing. Was it?
Yes, I would hope it does.
Well, and literally, just you mentioned VHS 85, in between Wrong Turn. I mean, I think, am I getting these times right? In between Wrong Turn and Silent Night, Deadly Night, you did VHS 85 as well as Sweet Revenge, right?
Yep.
So with VHS, did they come to you, or is that one that you had in the back pocket that you had kind of wanted to do?
It was both, actually.
Oh, cool.
So I had this idea that I had on my computer for years. It was called Like Fish in a Barrel, and it's basically what the no wake section of VHS 85 is. And I remember pitching it to some people, and everybody's like, "This is too weird. It's a little too dark. I don't know if we want to deal with this." And I was like, "All right." And then one of my managers, who's no longer my manager, this Britton Rizzio, who went off and started her own management company. But I remember she was very intrigued by the idea, and she goes, "Whatever you do, hang on to this one. You'll make it someday." She goes, "I just have a feeling." And so I did, man, because I think I had that. I think the concept, I wrote it in 2017 or 2018, something like that. And so that was just like, I hung on to it and I didn't know if I was going to make it a feature, if I was just going to go out and make a short film one day, but I really wanted to turn it into something more, and VHS allowed for that. And so Josh Goldblum reached out, and I had met him through a screening of The Domestics. Actually, the premiere of Domestics was at Cinepocalypse in Chicago, which was his fest. And he, announced the film and introduced me at the screening and introduced the film. And so he reached out when was it? It was late 2021. It was like, "Hey man, we're looking for new VHS 85 or VHS directors. We have 2 of them coming out. We have 99 and 85. He goes, "Which one are you interested in? And what kind of takes do you have?" And so I gave him 3 options for ideas. And he liked 2 of them. He goes, "You can pick whatever one you want." And so I went with the Like Fish in a Barrel, and that's what turned into be.
So I got a question about that one, because we had just taken a look at it, and we're curious how you shot it. Was that just y'all used modern stuff and then degraded it to VHS style, or did y'all actually use like old equipment and then just kind of blew it up?
Yeah, actually, it's so funny. We did actually we used a red camera
Okay.
to allow us to do some visual and effects enhancements that, like, again, are very slim in the movie, but like there were some certain moments that we really needed to make sure that we had some resolution to mess with things. And what it also allowed us to do is to we shot bigger, and it allowed us to do a lot of reframing and keep resolution, and then we could go through and blur the shit out of it, and any kind of color that we needed to do. And then, of course, um, uh, David Bruckner, I think he took and made sure that the entire film was put through a VHS tape,
Gotcha.
and then re-outputted and all this stuff, and then you could, like, anyway, it was this really cool process. And so all this stuff not only was given its look in certain DI corrections, but then to make each filmmaker could have their own look, because every camera from that era had its own vibe, even if they were put to VHS tape. And then, of course, everything was put up back out to tape, and that's how it gave it its look. And I still, like, again, it really just came down to if you can shoot the film like somebody who would have one of these big cameras on their shoulder,
Gotcha.
which the red camera was. I mean, the way that our build was literally like one of those old 80s cameras. that's
That's
how
awesome.
that's how Nick shot it. And so we were very true to like what something like that, how restrictive something like that was at times. I don't know, like, it ended up working out really good. And whereas I was nervous that we weren't actually shooting on the real thing at the time, in the end, like, we had so much more control to actually create the actual look that I was going for in the short. And I think I feel like I got what I really was going for. So
I can tell you from a viewer standpoint, it did, because that's one of the I've seen a lot of them that did not come out that way, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, this is clearly a look on it that actually came out really well. Like you should be proud of that one, because the fact that we had to have a question about it actually shows that like we were kind of confused, because like, damn, this looks too good. So after that, and I didn't realize this either until decided, you know what, let me go ahead and catch up on it. I've seen all your features, but I hadn't seen Sweet Revenge and didn't even know that was a thing, and thought that was kind of cool. And that had to be kind of, I don't know, like, so that has to be something really interesting for a Friday the 13th thing to come to you to do the first one. That's got to be kind of, assuming that that's how it happened. Before I say that, like,
yeah,
that's got to be kind of interesting, right?
yeah. I mean, and that, for that story is its own thing. It's so I was actually shooting a movie in Colombia, this movie that's going to be coming out later this year called Boiúna, Legend of the Amazon. And so I was down there shooting that, and then I got introduced to this Jason universe from Judson Scott and Ryan Turek over at Atomic Monster and Blumhouse. And they were like, "Hey, Sherry," who's Sherry Khan, she oversees Jason Universe with the Barsamians, and she was like, he goes, "Hey, Sherry, meet Mike Nelson. Mike is, really great with genre, and this might be something that he finds interesting." I'm like, "Find what interested?" And then when Sherry pitched it to me that they were doing something in conjunction with Angry Orchard, and that they wanted to make this basically a short film, bringing back Jason, after 16 years for their 45th anniversary or whatever of Friday the 13th, I was like, "Oh my God." So yeah, this sounds really cool. And so, yeah, they went out to a few directors, and I pitched just like they did, and they liked my take. And like I said, we were shooting Columbia. We were on overnights. It was insane. And so I remember coming back from an overnight, sleeping for 4 hours, taking this call with them, hearing them out, then shooting for another couple of weeks. And while I was shooting for those couple of weeks out in the jungle, thinking about what this Jason idea could be, pitching them this Jason idea while I was in Colombia. And then when we were done shooting, coming back to the States, and then hearing that they wanted to go with it. Crazy. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is insane. And from there on, I wrote a short script for it and assembled a team. So it was was a wild, it was a whirlwind. The year was crazy. Like, you start at the end of 2024 into 2025 with Boiúna, and then you get the Jason project, knowing full well you're not going to shoot it till summer. But then you end up, then we end up shooting Silent Night, Deadly Night. And then right when I got off Silent Night, Deadly Night, I came home, and a week or 2 weeks later, I ended up shooting the Jason thing.
Jesus.
And then all three of those projects all ended up locking their edit the same week.
That's
So
nuts.
it was just a wild experience. And again, would I do that again? Maybe not. It was very, but again, it's one of those, like, you look back, you're like, wow, those are great times, weren't they? You're juggling 3 movies. Like, who gets to say that?
That's pretty impressive, though. I mean, how do you do that? Like, as far as, you know, we come from the domestics, which takes some time to make. You do from the Wrong Turn one. Suddenly, you're having 3 projects to juggle. Going in and out of those different mindsets has to be kind of not stressful, but I guess tricky, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it is, because you are trying to keep everything straight. The thing is as long as you know, as long as you know what you're going for with each one, you know each one's. It's about vision, man. Like, you just have to, as long as you have the vision for each one and what each one needs to be. Sure, there's always discoveries along the way, as you're, especially when you're in post and you're starting to understand what the story is turning into. You know, that's its own battle. It's its own monster. But it wasn't as hard to jump between the 3 as much as I thought. I think it was more just there's just not a lot of time, and you feel like you're constantly doing stuff and there's no downtime. In terms of jumping between the projects, though, like, I don't remember that being as difficult, because I just knew what each one was. I think as long as that was the case, we were going to be okay. Because if you look tonally at all 3 of those movies, tonally, none of them are the same. Like, when you see Boiúna, it is like a harsh, really grounded, dark survival, like, thriller, drama, horror. Like, it's just, and then, of course, Silent Night is kind of this zany, romantic, supernatural horror slasher. And then you get thrown into Sweet Revenge, which is just, it's a straight up, like, homage to Friday the 13th 4 and 7. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that honestly, like, that's what it was. Like, those 2 movies smashed together is what Sweet Revenge is, in my opinion. So yeah.
So I could talk to you for 4 hours, but I have an hour. I could talk to you for 40 hours, honestly. But I do want to talk about Boiúna. When do you know what the release date is? That, or that's not a real word, but
it'll be later this year. I'm not sure if it's going to be quarter 3 or 4, but
sometime
I'm
this year.
hoping we have some news soon, because I know right now Lionsgate has the film, and they're prepping, they're ramping up
Gotcha.
for some release on that. So hopefully soon, hopefully
That's
in the next
awesome.
couple of weeks. That'd be amazing.
That's awesome. But in the meantime, people can go and check out Silent Night, Deadly Night. It is now available in physical media and streaming, correct?
Correct. Man, if you can get your hands on a physical copy, the streaming is great. Obviously, it's great quality. It's fine, but you put it next to the Blu-ray. I mean, and I'm sure the 4K is fine. I don't have a 4K TV, but, like, if you put it next to the Blu-ray, it's night and day, dude. Like, the Blu-ray is so clean. It is, yeah, like, it looks like the film that we shot. It's not, things aren't too dark. Like, saw it a couple times in the theaters, and it was you never knew which theater was going to be projecting it the best way. So we had some theaters that were projecting it with low lumens, and so it was very muddy and dark, and the color was off. You're just like, oh, to think that a handful of people in the world are watching the movie this way. But you know what? That is what happens in the theatrical experience. You don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
But honestly, the Blu-ray does give you the closest version to what we had in mind visually, and it just looks gorgeous. So I'm really happy with that, how that transferred out. And
We definitely had that conversation the other day with somebody about it doesn't matter if you can stream stuff at 4K or whatever you can. The compression's still there. It still
You
doesn't
see
look the same as
fucking lines,
polished.
dude.
Yeah.
You see the compression artifacting. Like, that's not 4K. I'm sorry, it's not.
No.
Like, again, if you get a screener copy of something, or like it's a quick watch, or it's like you're pulling something up on Netflix to watch it that night, Disney Plus, whatever it may be, like, fine, but like, yeah, if there's a movie that's important to you, it's you can't go wrong. And it's why it's hard that we've lost video rental stores and stuff like that, because it gave you the opportunity to watch things kind of in their fullest after that theatrical DCP or that print. Yeah. Anyway, that is a day-long conversation.
So yeah, trust me. Whenever you agreed to do this, I was stoked. I was like, geez, I need to cut it down to an hour. I don't know. And hopefully we did get most stuff. If people are looking to see what you're up to, where can they find you?
I'm not a huge social media presence, but I do have an Instagram account. It's Rockford at Rockford Road. Yeah, that's really about it. Like, I'll post stuff about future projects occasionally on there. But yeah, other than that, it just, stuff gets thrown up on IMDb every so often, and you can read the industry rags and go from there. But yeah.
I mean, that's the best way, because I know a lot of people have started becoming big fans of yours, and so it's really good to go to Rockford Road, because that's how I figured out the Wrong Turn one. That's how a lot of stuff has come up. It's like, oh, wait a minute, what? This is coming out next week? What's that? So yeah, it's a really good way of keeping track of what's going on, because
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you have Boiúna coming out, because that's definitely something that after watching Sunday Night Deadly Night and then the short last night, I was like, damn, I wonder who's got coming up. Good to know you got something coming up pretty soon, because
Yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, I mean, well, and I would say, even like the explosion of guys like yourself that are, I mean, I don't think I was connected with any like horror Instagrammers, or like influencers that like talk horror and stuff like that and have guests, like. And then as soon as Silent Night came out, like, suddenly I got all these pings to be on shows, and it was through Cineverse, and I was like, I had no idea this was even a thing. Like I said, I'm a little bit social media impaired, not the greatest at it, but like, when I saw that people had just these massive followings and like they were interviewing people, I was like, holy crap, this is a huge culture. I had no idea. And so that's another way, like, guys like me, or just directors that are trying to carve their path, right now, which I'm still in the midst of doing, coming onto shows like this and just shooting the shit, dude. Like, it's not only fun, but it reminds people, how important movies are, and gets people excited, because we all love movies. And yeah. So it's a really cool platform that really, as of this past year or so, I've been getting more and more involved with, and because it's talking to people like yourself, John, and movie lovers, and just geeking out. Like, it doesn't get better than that.
no, not at all. Like I said, I could sit here all day just going over different things. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that has come out that you have put out, and I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate what you've done. I mean, like I said, the Domestics still to this day is one of my favorite sets, and I went on there not expecting it. I literally had never worked with most of that team before. The first week, like you said, was rough, but by the end of it, I was like sad, very sad to see it go, because loved all those cats, like, just tremendously. And I
Yeah.
I will always hold your work up for the fact that that was such a fun time and such a great time. And the stuff that you put out.
Pretty cool stuff that, I mean, let's be real, like, we were shooting like an old school style
Yes.
movie, like,
Yes,
whereas
we were.
everything at that point was being so swept up and kind of digested, or like gobbled up, in terms of like, everything was so visual effects heavy.
Mhm.
Like, we
Yeah,
were doing so much just old school kind of 80s practical filmmaking in
it
that.
was
Like, it was,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, to have that be your first experience as a filmmaker was a joy. So it's like it was a tumultuous little moment, but I would never trade it for the world. It had so much fun, and the fact that somebody gave me the chance to go and make this crazy little movie with cars and guns and weird people in masks, like I again, very blessed that was the case. So yeah, it was a great time.
Sweet, brother. Appreciate you, man. Mike P. Nelson, check out Silent Night, Deadly Night currently, Boiúna later this year. Go back and watch The Domestics. Go back and watch Wrong Turn. They're awesome movies. Man, I appreciate you coming on. You do not know. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate it.